Be on your best behavior. Not only is Mom here to lead us through this, but she's got on sparkly eyeshadow.
It's a very good look. I like it.
Yeah.
I noticed she also has notes, which is a little concerning because I didn't prepare at all.
Yeah. Well, you know what? No one's shocked.
That's not a nice thing to say.
Sometimes the truest things aren't.
Look how many notes I have. Like, just...
Good God.
Welcome back to Talking Story.
What's this?
Well, I'm usually over here, so I got to kind of swoop-de-doo to welcome everybody.
It's a wide shot. You don't have to do anything. It still
you know
picks
what?
you up.
Some of us
move.
like to give our all. I don't know who that would be. I don't know which one of us that would be.
Have you noticed that all three of us are here and it took us about 3 seconds to get off the rails?
Yeah, well, we knew this was coming. Look, it is Book Club with the Misses. We have looked forward to this all month. This has been the March of Darkness.
Woohoo!
The March of Darkness month. This is Mom's favorite book, one of them. Mm-hmm. Didn't start out that way. I'm sure you'll give us some background. But we came on board this month for The Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. We are about to get all up into it.
Yeah, this is spoilers. Like, this came out in 1899. If you haven't read it yet.
Yeah, don't just log on and say, I was on my way to the library right now.
Don't message me about that.
And you guys just blew it.
Yeah.
It's been a long time. This wasn't sprung on you.
No.
Also commonly assigned in schools. So if you say you never got a shot, we don't believe you there either.
We don't, at least in America.
So,
true.
I am a lowly participant here. You are running the show.
That's not good.
Oh, I can't wait for this.
That's not good. Well, we all three read it this month, and we read it by using the audiobook, which is a perfectly legitimate way to read a book.
Did we all do the audiobook?
I did as well. I had a hard time because my mind wanders, but Kenneth Branagh kept me tuned in pretty good.
So we did the Audible version, which is called the Audible Signature Performance by Sir Kenny Branagh, which I think is excellent. I like to listen to it once a year, whether I need to or not.
That's weird, but okay.
It's maybe one of the best audiobook performances I've heard. It's really good.
Speaking of weird, you got a lot going on back here, buddy. So the thing about the audiobook performance is that it doesn't
like the biggest
have any racial
magpie moment. It's like sparkly.
It doesn't have any racial slurs in it.
Okay.
So if you're reading the text, wow, you're going to get something.
You're going to get more than what's in the audio performance.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So some people just can't stand that.
Right.
So if you want to digest this story without encountering, that
slurs
word, I would definitely check out the audiobook. Not to say that racism isn't present, but I
definitely got that.
It is a story about the Jakob.
You putting this on me?
Yeah, it's very easy. I'm going to test your ability to analyze a plot.
I'm back in high school.
It's very easy. It's very easy. It is a trick question. What is the plot of this book?
Well, it is a frame narrative, so the plot
It's not the plot.
I just started.
You can do it.
It is about a man telling a story on a ship that is waiting to take off.
Stop. That is it. This is what happens in this book.
All right.
A man is telling a story. That's it. And he's telling a story to unnamed narrators. And so most of this book is in quotes. It's like, this is Joseph Marlowe on the deck of the Nellie in the Thames River, looking at the city of London, the quote, greatest city on earth. I didn't say that. Joseph Conrad did.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that what we have here is the Victorian staple, the frame narrative. So we've got Marlowe on the deck of the ship when they're looking at the city of London, they're thinking, this is what he says.
Pinnacle of civilization.
The pinnacle of civilization. He says, this too was the heart of darkness. That's not the direct quote, but it was at one point in the Roman Empire an outpost where men died like flies, where the weather and the environment and the lack of amenities, if you will, were killing people left and right. So at this point in the book, Jacob,
Yes.
we've got a man outright telling us that this was us too. This great city was once an outpost of civilization, like
Right.
where men died like flies. So what are we going to see? What can we expect from that after, in this book on the front end, we're just like, look at this and all this greatness. This too, is it? Yeah. And then he says, I'm going to tell you a story about the time I went, into Africa.
Yeah. And saw some true horror.
I saw some bad stuff.
I feel like I'm back in school. This is great. I'm learning a lot here.
So
Although I will say really quickly,
expect?
the quiz that I got in high school, I believe the first question, if I remember correctly, on the pop quiz for Heart of Darkness was, what are rivets?
Really? That summarizes your
that is in the book.
education in a big way. What the hell does that have to do with anything?
Continue.
So I don't know. What I'm trying to get at, what I'm trying to get you to say, which is probably not the best way to go about this, is that we're going to be looking at a reflection of ourselves in this book. We're going to be looking at saying, like, look at all this progress, look at all this greatness. Yeah, this used to be a pile of crap.
Well, I think that not only, one of the themes that they're playing with is not only that this used to be a pile of crap as well, but that there is really not a large transition that needs to happen between one civilization to another. Like, humans are humans. They can be quote unquote savages or they can be quote unquote civilized. The distance between one to the other is actually not that far, is kind of a main theme.
That's Oh,
no?
What do you have to say?
I would disagree with that.
Okay.
I would think one of the fallacies of the thinking here, starting to say this was an outpost and look at the Roman Empire and it's been built up to the pinnacle of society. Look at what we as a civilized people can bring to these corners of the world. Look at it in all its splendor and grandeur. Let me take you to a place where that has yet to happen, where we have not forced our impetus onto the land to make it grow up into this great and amazing.
I would say that's exactly what they think they're doing.
That's exactly what they think they're doing. And what they're learning is that's ridiculous and not possible. The further they go into this forest primeval, the more they learn their power to instill their ideas of civilization and the way things should be and right and wrong it's a fallacy at best.
How did you find the text on this? You haven't really interacted with this text, I'll say, since high school, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
Or maybe it was even before. If it was high school, it was very early high school, maybe freshman year or something like that.
How did you find it this time around?
Way easier to read.
Why?
Like miles easier. I think part of it was just because I'm older, and I think at a younger age, you get given things in high school that you're not willing to. I even remember in high school you telling me that there's a reason the prose is dense in this book, or quote unquote dense. Some might not call it dense. And it's
I think
that
most people would call it dense.
I think most people would, yeah. But you yourself are slashing through the jungle as well, and the prose is kind of an example of that. But as a younger person, you might not be as willing to go on that journey. But I found it really interesting this time around, and I got way more into it than I did as a kid.
I don't think this should be taught in high school.
I kind of agree.
I think you're way too young to understand what this means.
Unless you got a great teacher.
And they exist.
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely.
Yeah. But
I don't even know if it is taught anymore, but I don't.
I have no idea.
I think it's too early to interact with that text.
Yeah, I would agree.
So in my own journey with this book, Jacob, one of my teachers told me that because about, you yourself are hacking through the jungle of this text. It is dense. It's laden with adjectives. It can be very poetic and very
Stylized.
So very stylized, and stuff that like I just write down like passages of it just because they're so gorgeous. Sometimes I like to pretend that I'm writing it. So when we're getting through this stuff, it's like I definitely, and it was in grad school, had an allergic reaction to this text, and some of our people in Discord had an allergic reaction to this text, and it's understandable because it's dense and it's pretentious, and it seems to be saying only one thing: colonialism bad, and I will grant that because I was one of those people who didn't understand what I was really looking at. And then I told somebody in Discord, like, you really need a good teacher to help you get through this. And I was mistaken. I think you are your best teacher when going through this text. And the reason why I said that is because and the reason why I keep returning to this text is because it's so contradictory. And it's just not only the denseness and the stylistic prose, but it's the person who is narrating, Marlowe, can be one thing and then another, and it's very complex. And I like to struggle with this text, is what I discovered over the years. Is that, once a year, I put on the headphones and listen to Sir Kenny narrate this. And every year I'm struck by something else. And this book and my interaction with it comes with this is my journey. I mean, and it's not just into darkness, because it was like, oh, it's the heart of darkness and you're a gloomy person for reading this. And what I don't think so. I mean, I think I'm just a ray of sunshine. But
Sure.
It's because look at my eyeshadow. But I think when you start to wrestle with these things, like the contradictory nature of being a white person on this planet and the heavy baggage that comes with that, when you look especially at something like King Leopold II's reign in the Congo and how destructive and violent that was. And you have to look in America at your own, participation in racial systems. And, I don't want to get too much into this because we are talking about the book, but I feel like to struggle with this history of ourselves is the right thing to do. And to struggle with the contradictory nature of the book and to struggle with the meaning of this book is something that you can continue to look in the mirror and investigate and hold a candle to. I like doing it because I think it's something worth doing. Jakob, what do you think about that?
I agree with that.
I bet it's you.
Please do. I think maybe subconsciously that's what I enjoyed more about it this time, is that I think that you are right. It's probably not best to give to people that are 14 or 15. I think it's more enjoyable when you're older and not even more willing to dive into denser prose, but more willing to struggle.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I think talking about topics like that should require a level of struggle. And if you're just accepting them blindly, then you're maybe not taking in all of the things that the book is trying to tell you, because I think Marlowe is his motivations kind of flip and flop a few times in the middle of the book, especially. And he kind of gets blinded a couple times by this mysterious figure in the forest, or not the forest, in the jungle. And threw me for a little bit more of a loop this time, in that I noticed that. And I didn't notice that when I read it in high school. And I found that way more interesting in a way that actually pulled me in. I hope that... Oh, that doesn't pick up on my camera. Cool. FaceTime did a little thumbs up, for anyone wondering. It was a much more enjoyable experience to struggle. I agree. And I found myself actually wanting to read it again later, because it feels like a book that I will enjoy in different ways. Maybe not even pick up more things that I didn't notice before, but just enjoy differently as I get older.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think you need some maturity to interact with this text and to interact with yourself.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a text that, I don't care how mature you get, I think you'll always find something different, because as you go through your journey personally, and you start to figure out your place in the world and what you think about your own past history and what you have left in the future, your perspective changes.
Yeah.
So you're always going to see something different in a text like this.
Do you think, either of you, this book has something to offer more than colonialism is bad? And if so, or if someone says, like, I just don't want to interact with the racism and the sexism of this book, maybe I'll just read something else that's...
I think that's fine.
Yeah,
well, of course it's fine, but
if you want to read something else, read something else. But I think to say that the only thing this book talks about is colonialism is not entirely true. I mean, the main point of the book, I would think, is definitely colonialism bad. It's written in every page, colonialism bad. But there's definitely other things you can pick out there about messianic figures and flawed leaders and, flawed companies in general, and the ability
corporate
There you
structures.
go, corporate structures.
Yeah. How quickly you can go
The
mad when you're
inherent
away from
darkness in
civilization.
corporate structures. Yeah.
There's a lot of different things you can pick out of there if you're willing to look for it. But if you go into it thinking, oh, it's the colonialism is bad book, that's probably how you're going to feel about it when you read it.
And that's something, honestly, that I used to feel about this book, is that it was pretty one-dimensional and it had one thing to offer. And that was a critique of colonialism, and the rest of it was heavy adjectives, racism and sexism. And I wasn't in the mood for it. And I really thank my graduate teacher, Gretchen Mazer, for making me take another look at it, and
more than another, many other looks at it.
It was very difficult. So
I do remember that time.
So and what I remember about that time too is that I had to do it by myself. Like she was very much like, no, you got to look again. You have to look again, and it was me who came to the realization, and this is before Wikipedia, that, I mean, well, if Wikipedia were around, it wasn't, as prevalent as it is. It was before phones and pockets. But, this aspect of like, take a look, take another look, keep looking, keep digging through, is reflective of Marlowe's journey to the center of Africa, to the three stations, the outer station at the edge of Africa when he starts going up the Congo River, to the central station, and to the inner station. And so when we have these three levels, I think there is a similar experience when you're young, or when you're resisting this book as much as I did, that you have a similar experience of pushing. Of having to push, and of meeting, as Marlowe did at each station, incredible resistance, like no rivets.
No rivets.
What are rivets, Jacob?
Do you want me to answer
It doesn't matter what they are.
Well,
it doesn't matter what they are. They're a piece of industrial
Yeah, you
junk.
had to
Kind of
put the
all
boat
you need
together.
That they- well,
narratively,
very
all
hard
you need to
without
know
him.
is he needs him to put the boat together. That's all. That's
Yeah.
all you need to know.
Yeah, but that's it. I mean, that's plot, or that's not even plot. That's just
It's something
plot
he has
point.
to overcome. It's a
It's-
dramatic
it
device.
is something, yeah,
Yeah.
but it's definitely like, what's way more interesting to look at in that situation was like all of these like industrial pieces of equipment that were around the inner station. And it wasn't the inner, it was the outer,
The
I
outer
believe.
station.
It was just like around, just in the overgrown grass, like animal carcasses
Yeah.
that were useless out there. And, that's a much more interesting thing to look at, to say that like all of your industrial revolution and forward engineering on all of these great, mechanical and
these
metal
mechanical
things
marvels
are
you brought to this
utterly
part of the world to change
useless
it
out here.
is just getting overgrown.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're useless. You can't have them, no matter what comes up the river is going to be the wrong thing to fix the thing that you need to keep going up the river.
Yeah.
That is the same experience of reading this book and banging your head against it. It was like I keep finding the wrong thing, so I have to sit here. And one of my teachers actually said, sit there, sit in the text like a snake on a tree and just sit there. And what a great metaphor for life. Just sit in the muck and see what you can see.
I mean, there are pretty
without
large portions
feeling
of
one way or way.
There are pretty large
Fun.
portions of the story where Marlowe's doing just that. He's stuck somewhere, or he's waiting on
That's all he
somebody
can
to
do.
stop being incompetent, and he just has to sit there and wait.
Yeah.
Because waiting for somebody in this story to stop being incompetent is
Is a lot of the
He's been
story.
waiting
It's
a
a lot
long
of the story.
time too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's most of it.
so we have the actual physical trip to the inner station, and we have the metaphorical trip into an inner darkness, because every station that he gets to, he goes more into himself.
Deeper.
He is wondering what he's going to find at the end. He is wondering about this man who is at the end. Now, a much more popular way to read this book is by watching Apocalypse Now, because that is, someone in Discord asked, it was like, I've seen that. It was like, these two are, this book and Apocalypse Now are in communication with each other. That is perfectly acceptable way to look at this story, because Coppola did follow some of it, very closely, and some of it very loosely. But it's the same idea, where there is this man at the center of an unreachable wilderness, surrounded by people, humans, in their just starkest nature. And this man in Apocalypse Now, in a war, and in Heart of Darkness, at the center of a very brutal dictatorship of stripping a land of its resources, it's like, yeah, they're totally connected. And I think that's a wonderful way to interact with the text, if that's what can bring you to it.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that.
Yeah, maybe that's the
I mean, I
recommendation.
love that movie.
If you read Heart of Darkness and bounce off of it, either come back to it at a later point in your life and maybe you'll look at it differently, or just watch Apocalypse Now. Enjoy that.
And that's one of the things that my teacher suggested that I do. It was like, why don't you look at this? I was like, well, I like that movie. She goes, well, look at it again. Look at the documentary that goes with it, called Hearts of Darkness, directed by his wife, Eleanor Coppola. Am I saying that right? Coppola? Anyway.
Coppola, I believe.
Yeah, Coppola. And that is a reflection of Apocalypse Now, and how crazy that filming was, and how
he had to go deep into his own Heart of Darkness to get what he got on film.
Yeah, and it was also just like this fruitless banging of your head against nature, and against, like, not only the nature of
And
celebrity,
against the corporate of modern filming.
Yeah.
The corporation of modern filmmaking.
that kept,
and the
like
corporatization
telling
of art.
him
And,
like he was over budget, and bashing his head against like the nature of celebrity, with Martin Sheen having a heart attack because he was so coked up, and Marlon Brando
being
showing
so
up on
overweight.
So, and knowing no lines, and it's just
he didn't need lines.
He doesn't need lines. He doesn't need lines. He did beautifully, and not only that, the nature of like what was going on in the Philippines when he was shooting with the helicopters that he had rented from the Filipino army, just like took off one day because it's like they had to go fight some insurgents. So it's like where is this going?
Yeah.
So it's a perfectly fine way to interact with this text and to, to love that movie and to love that documentary and what it says about war and against war and against the nature of war. And
even more.
Yeah, much more.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, if you want, Joseph Conrad and who he was. And what's important to know is that in his youth, his family was in a part of Poland that was a part of the Prussian Empire. So they were really familiar with the nature of being under colonial rule. And his family were, like really intense nationalists and very proud to be Polish. But it was a time in Europe when a lot of things and a lot of empires were in flux. So these words like empire and colonialism really mean a lot to him and his family.
I'm sure.
He's also an English as a second language dude.
Wow,
maybe
that's amazing when you think about.
He didn't learn, maybe not even second language. It might have been like his fourth language. I'm not sure, but he didn't learn English until he was in his 20s.
Wow.
Yeah, and so
that's crazy.
That is crazy because his command of it is so intense.
Yeah.
So and then he also, of course, had the personal experience of going upriver himself. Mm-hmm. He was on a steamboat. He did meet people, plural, like Kurtz. He did. In fact, there are many arguments among academics about who Kurtz is based on. There are maybe like 7 candidates because it happened a lot, apparently.
Yeah.
And so all of these really deep, dark things that you see in the book are things that he witnessed. And a lot of this book was taken from his travel diaries. Mm. So there is that added level of being, just like intensely real.
Yeah, that's really interesting to mine your own soul for your art in this case.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty that's a lot to deal with, Mr. Conrad.
Yeah, and at the time, I mean, this is a very huge political expose of what was going on in the Congo because not a lot of people were really talking about that, or it wasn't even as hip as it became to start talking about the workings of the ivory trade and the dangers of King Leopold II's rule in Congo. And I mean, he was really swimming upstream as far as, his political point of view here.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people in England were just fine. With how things were going. And they really didn't know.
Exactly.
They really didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
And not only that, if they did, they probably weren't personalizing it. Mm-hmm. Because, the view of Africans at the time by the English weren't that great. That is to say, like, I think you can look at a book like this also and say there are no characters in Africa other than whites that are really have any dimension at all. They are body parts. They cause Conrad fear. Marlowe. They cause Conrad Marlowe fear. Jeez, come on. They are there are things to be reacted to, and they are things. Not people. Okay. But then there's some thinking about like, wow, they might actually be human, or maybe we are the same because like there's a part of this that I really want to know what they're doing and what they're saying and how they're communicating. I mean, there's an apartness there for sure.
I think there's that for sure. I kind of saw it a bit. I mean, I saw that for sure.
Yeah.
But then I also saw something that they were such a part of, as opposed to being...
Who's they?
all the indigenous people that he was coming in contact with on his travels upriver, right?
Yeah.
They were, these people were, I understand what you're saying, but also they were mysterious in a way and untouchable in a way and ununderstandable in a way, enigmatic in a way, that what he was and what overall we were bringing with our Western sensibilities of what civilization is and trying to foist it on this place was just ridiculous. Like it's ununderstandable for him to like look at these people that are so much a part of this country and this land that he couldn't understand either. Like the further you got into it, just like Alighieri's Circle of Hell, the further you got into it, it's like you just started, well, let's just lob bombs. Let's just lob bombs and land. That seems to be the best plan we can come up with because you just can't fathom it. You just can't change it. You just can't understand it. It's enigmatic to you. And I found the people were just another component of it.
I have that quote, by the way. There's a man of war anchored off the coast of Africa shelling the bush.
Yeah.
This is something that Marlowe was witnessing. It says, in the empty immensity of earth, sky, and water, there she was. He's referring to the ship. Incomprehensible, firing into a continent. I love that.
Yeah, and that's the best we could do. That's what we can bring and what we can try and I totally understood it because I grew up hearing stories from my family and the generations of patriarchs in my family that have bent the will of this country to their will and built something
because your family was really interactive with the land in Texas.
Very much
yes,
so.
Yeah.
So when you get to this point, it's like the people that they're coming in contact with is just as mysterious as the land. It's just as the forest primeval, and these people are part of it. They cannot fathom it. They can't understand it. It is mysterious. It is enigmatic. And I just completely saw it in that way. I mean, unchangeable because you can't even understand it.
I kind of read it in a similar way as well, that there was almost a feeling like the way that this land is and the way that the people have learned to live with it is really the only way. And therefore, when this group of people comes in, it's inconquerable. You can't tame this land. It can only be lived in one way, and it's been figured out. And it's not the way we're trying to do it.
And it's not the way we're going to bring in and try and bring commerce and civilization to an area. Right. And we're never going to let that go. It goes all the way back to the Romans he mentions in the beginning, and the aqueducts and the roads and all the things that we consider civilization to be, going all the way back to that created this sparkling city of London that we started from. We're never going to let go of those ideals. So when we get to this completely wild, unobtainable, untamable place, we're just going to go inward and dissolve because we cannot crack this nut. We cannot solve this mystery. It is beyond us because we cannot let go of our own ideals of civilization and culture. We're just going to try and mash that round peg into a square hole until we just fail and blow away.
Here's another quote, one of my favorites. We were traveling in the night of first ages. What thrilled you was the thought of your remote kinship to this wild and passionate uproar. And that was what that's when he's hearing, the voices of the natives on shore, and he's hearing the drums and the singing and the shouting, and he's like, what thrilled him was that he was that as well. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Jakob?
I don't know what else to add to that.
Take it home.
I mean, maybe that's where I got some of the feeling that the way that Marlowe felt was that there is not, when you compare this person to that person, there is not too much of a difference between what one person may be compared to another. It's just that you are in a different place and have learned to live a different way. And that's it.
Yeah.
And if I was here and this is where I was born, I would have learned to live the same way.
Yeah. And your entire ideal of reality in the world is going to be completely and forever different.
Yeah.
And trying to bring these things together is a fool's errand.
Yeah.
I think, a lot thematically of what he's trying to say. So much so that the further you get deeper into it, just like those circles of hell that Dante lay out, the further you get into it, when you finally do get to Kurtz, you see somebody that has been completely and irrevocably changed from where he started out. Yeah. Because he's been on the inside for that long.
I have another quote, which is, I think we're like hitting a groove here where you get really excited and I support it with a quote. Yeah. It's like we're writing a paper like to ourselves. It's like, says Marlowe saying, they were no colonists. Their administration was merely a squeeze and nothing more, I suspect. They were conquerors. And for that, you want only brute force. Nothing to boast of when you have it, since your strength is just an accident. Rising from the weakness of others.
Rising from the weakness of others. Doesn't that completely sum up our ideal of the ascension of our civilization and culture?
Yeah.
Like it's been built on...
It was just robbery with violence, aggravated murder on a great scale, and men going at it blind. Mm-hmm. This is very proper for those who tackle darkness. I love this book so much.
Yeah, because who would tackle darkness if you don't go in blind? I mean, if you went in learned and you knew how silly it was to attempt it, who would go in?
Yeah.
Who would try it? And I think that's such a perfect example of Marlowe in the beginning. He's got a little bit of time between jobs. He's kind of looking around. What am I going to do? Oh, I happen to see this. This could be a great adventure. You know, he's completely oblivious, completely just.
Yeah, to the reality.
To the reality. He's completely an example of where he lives from in his own world.
So now he's sitting on the deck of the Nellie and the Thames, just like totally scarred.
Oh,
by
completely.
It. And not only that, malarial, because he's basically yellow. I mean, so like he's come out of it, like not only, like mentally, but physically scarred.
Sure.
So
close to
close to dead. I mean, like he almost died as well.
His needle starts to tip towards what happens to Kurt.
He is forever changed.
Yeah.
He makes it back to civilization, or what you consider civilization, but he's never going to be the same again.
No, he's
Kurtz
not.
almost makes it back to civilization.
Definition of
Give him a little credit. He
Kurtz
almost
was
got
never
there.
going to make it back.
Oh no, Kurtz was never going to make it.
He was on the way.
But okay,
yes,
let me bring this up, because this struck me. The last time we were all together talking about a classic book was Halloween, and we're talking about Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And the parallels of the end of this book to Frankenstein were just so clear to me.
Interesting.
That you've got Kurtz on the boat, coming back. As someone telling the stories told on a boat, and you're on a boat coming back, and it's like, as opposed to like the creature, running off. I mean, Dr. Frankenstein didn't make it either.
Yeah, and let me just point out, Joseph Conrad, if you're still alive, when you say stuff
sure
like, "Let's keep the women out of it." Mary Shelley wrote the book you copied.
I'm not saying copied, but I saw a lot of parallels to the ending of this that I did to the ending of Frankenstein. Just a quick break in the action to thank all of our correspondents, directors, and producers on Patreon. These people keep the lights on. They make decisions for us because we don't know what we're doing. We're not great at making the decisions around here. The decisions all the way from what I'm going to read next, what the book club of the month Patreon pick is going to be, but all the way up to video ideas and what we're going to do here on the channel coming up for you. If you're interested or you want to find out how you can be a part of this, right down there in the description box, click the Patreon link. It's got all the answers for you. And once again, thank you to all of these fine people that are helping us build the channel, our correspondents, directors, and producers.
He's riffing off of everything like everyone else does.
Like everyone else, sure.
But it's clear you read it.
a lot of the themes looked at too,
Sure. I mean, we took a look on our Discord this month of, the Dante's Inferno. Mm-hmm. We note, of course, how similar some of these things are. Even Francis Ford Coppola. Mm-hmm. Knew what he was doing by copying or reflecting Dante's Inferno. So, I mean, there's a lot of classical literature reflected in this. Even, some of the Greek nodding, when he's going to the company headquarters in Belgium which is talk about the heart of darkness. That's where King Leopold is ruling from, and so that's where the company is. So he's going into Belgium, which he calls the White Sepulchred City, and when he is in the company office, there are two women knitting in the outer office.
Yeah.
And
like Atropos and
yes. Mm-hmm. So they're knitting his fate. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. She seemed, it says, uncanny and fateful. Often far away from there, I thought of these two guarding the door of darkness, knitting black wool as for a warm pall, one introducing continually to the unknown, the other scrutinizing the cheery and foolish faces with unconcerned old eyes. Then he says, Ave, old knitter of black wool, morituri te salutant. Excuse me, I have no Latin skills. Not many of those she looked on ever saw her again. Not half by a long way.
Yeah. Obviously the fates.
Right, yeah.
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 It's gorgeous.
I love this book. Love this book. I love it. Jakob? Do you have any words for us?
I do not. I mean, I guess I'm
No,
trying
no,
to.
no.
I'm trying to come up with a question for you because you love this book so much. I
want to talk about like the self-incrimination. If you want to beg on that question a little bit, but you can go ahead if you want.
I was going to ask. I guess in a
Sure.
similar vein, you were a writer. What are the things that you?
Sometimes.
What are the things that you would steal from this?
That's why she writes everything down.
That's what I'm saying. But we've talked about a lot of things here. What specifically are the things that you would want to steal?
All this. I would steal all
If you
of this.
wrote Heart of Darkness, what would you point at and say, I'm the most proud of this?
I love the language so much. I love the phrase paper mache Mephistopheles. I love this line. The word ivory rang in the air. I love that phrase. Was whispered, was sighed. You would think they were praying to it. I mean, like, I love those. Like, I would kill to have those lines of that. Just.
But the amazing thing about those lines is that you think of the line. Paper mache Mephistopheles. Man, my
that's what I like to say.
My Marlowe's not good. So paper mache Mephistopheles, like even that line feeds into the themes.
Yeah.
Because even our cultural myths and legends that everything is built on, taken somewhere else,
Mean nothing.
would dissolve as soon as it hits the water.
Yeah.
You know, so even these lines that you love, is for the language, it still feeds into the themes. It does so much heavy lifting and double duty as opposed to just being pretty. Everything has a purpose and a reason.
Yeah.
Even when you talk about, it's dense and the adjectives and you're hacking through, it's like, there's really nothing wasted. There's so much dealt with, so much hearkening back to who we are, where we come from in story, as well as who we are metaphysically in that many pages.
Somebody said, Colm Tobin said that he dances, Joseph Conrad dances between the precise and the shimmering so well. I love that phrase too.
Yeah.
Now I wish I were Colm Tobin. But I love that boundary that Conrad writes in his text.
Yeah. But it is like a tightrope that he could tip over either way, right?
Yeah, and that's what the contradictory nature is about in this text, of where Marlowe is at the beginning and where he is at the end, and how he is wrestling with everything. And he'll say something perfectly reasonable in one sentence and something incredibly racist and sexist the next. That's just like, you have to look at it and say, that is me.
That's all of it. That is.
I contain multitudes. That is me.
The sacred and the profane.
Yes.
At any one given moment, at any time, can come to the surface.
We're going to title this episode Mom Cheers 45 minutes.
Yeah, pretty much. So, I mean...
Flabby devils. I love that. So I wish I could write something as like politically relevant and socially skewering with the kind of text that people would just fawn over for a century. Like that's what
every
any
artist's
writer,
dream, sure.
and there's so many writers, great writers who have been influenced by this book, like Joan Didion and Thomas Pynchon and Saul Bellow and amazing contemporary writers who cite this man as an influence. So like I'm not alone in wanting to like you just like hit somebody in the face to be able to do that.
But the interesting thing is, I think it goes deeper than that. Because for you to leap off of this and say, this is what I'd like to do. I would like to do something that defines my reality and skewers it and uses a language as such that people will be looking at centuries later. This goes deeper than that. Because if you just take it and what it does with King Leopold and us trying to twist Force Primeval to our will, we've somewhat moved past that. It wouldn't be as relevant today. This is still relevant because of the internal journey and the metaphysical journey and the spiritual journey of people on this and what they're finding out about themselves. So that's what...
I still think we wrestle with nature in this way,
We
though.
wrestle with nature, but we wrestle interior.
Yeah,
That's
but
the
why
only
it
way that
never
a book
goes
like
out of
this would be
fashion.
applicable to adapt to a screenplay and even modernize it like Francis Ford Coppola did. If it was anything other, you wouldn't be able to do that.
Oh, you could totally do it.
It wouldn't translate as
of-
well.
It would completely translate if you did a group of astronauts going to a completely unknown planet and being smacked in the face. All these themes would still work and resonate if you did it the right way and gave it time and space for them to wrestle with their internal journey against their mission spiritually of what they're faced with.
That's exactly
this
what
is
I
still
mean.
would be completely relevant today.
Exactly. Yes. Because of the way that the story is, and it is about the metaphysical capabilities of humanity and what it can and can't do, even confronted with itself in a different place or form. Because of that, you can adapt it to anything, because everybody's going to recognize that in themselves.
That is at the crux of its timeless nature, I feel.
Mom was looking for a quote. She didn't hear any of that.
No,
I heard it all. I'm just basically rereading the book as you're talking, and it's just like,
we should
this
just
is a
title
good
this
one,
Mom
too.
Reads the Book again.
Yeah. Right. As soon as we hit record to stop the recording on this, Mom's starting over and reading again.
You know, Kelsey on Discord brought up something really interesting where she noticed the themes of grief in this book and how, there's, of course, the grief at the end of the intended, which really makes Marlowe uncomfortable because there are some facts that he could tell her that would completely destroy her.
Right.
Her vision
Isn't
of Kurtz.
that the internal battle? We'll battle with him
Right.
again. He's back into civilized world. What does he say? Is it the truth? Is it reality? The mysterious that we can never
because-
understand?
yeah.
I was about to say,
Or
I
is it-
love that is the moment that he stops having the will to confront humanity. After everything that he's seen, it's the return to civilization, or the civilization that he knows, and he's confronted with this face of somebody that he has something horrible to tell them, and he can't do it.
Who's been waiting?
Who's been waiting?
Yeah.
Endlessly.
And he lies.
And he lies. He
lies.
can't do
Even
it.
in the book, he says, "I hate lies," and that's exactly what he does.
Again, we're never going to outrun our past and our culture and our nature. And at his
But what
very basis and his soul, he's still that European that's going to do the nice civilized thing to this person.
Contradictive thing to do, to
Completely.
actually say
Completely.
at the beginning, and he's still talking to these people on a ship, so he's just so vulnerable at that point. We're just like, boy, I hate lies, and at the end of this story, I'm gonna lie to this grieving woman's face.
Absolutely.
And be
Absolutely.
happy
reason
about it.
other than personal
No, there's
gain.
a reason. No,
No, not personal gain. I don't think personal gain.
He's
personal
protecting
protection.
her.
Yes.
Well, no, not personal protection. He doesn't have anything to do with
Yeah,
Kurtz.
he gets no
Kurtz-
payoff from making her happy.
I don't
he knew
know about
Kurtz
that.
for hours. He
I
knew
don't know
Kurtz
about
for hours. What he wanted to protect her from was that stuff out there.
I
He
think
wanted
it's
to
more
do the
selfish than that.
civilized thing.
I think it's more selfish
Okay.
than that. I don't.
Let's hear it.
If you're saying that somebody such as Marlowe would basically take his knowledge of what he's seen in the world and put it under lock and key. No one needs to know about this. He wouldn't just sit on the ship and tell this story. And when he's confronted with somebody that is wanting to know what happened, wanting to know the truth that their partner was unfaithful, went completely mad, and died.
The last words were the horror.
Yes. But these are not good details to share.
Yeah.
But these are the details that I tirelessly searched for. And now I'm here to tell you about it. And I can't bring myself to do it. I can't bring myself to share that information. It's not for you.
But he can bring himself to do it. Here's the nature. This is the beauty of that you can't lose sight of. The framed narrative, this Victorian dramatic device that so many people now will tell you, oh, you gotta show, not tell. Not always. Here's the magic of this. Because he's telling the story. He's still on the deck of that ship, telling these people that he doesn't really know that he came up short when it came time to tell the truth because he couldn't face someone and do the uncivilized thing and crush another human being with the truth. He did the civilized thing that he's always been taught in European standards, to a little white lie that'll make somebody feel better, right? But now he's in front of some men on a ship that he didn't really know, that he allows himself to be vulnerable with and just tell the story. He's telling a story. He's not right there right then. He's telling that story. So you get the dichotomy of both at the same time, which is what the Victorian frame narrative can do, which is why sometimes telling can beat out showing if it's done by a master.
I agree.
Thank you for joining us. That's
Right?
what. Absolutely right.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd marry you again. Glad I
Well,
put on
before we go, we got a little
eyeshadow with this.
We got, the
Hold on, is there
sparkly
another
eyeshadow
quote I want to
was
say? I'll look at
got me
more
going.
quotes.
I was looking for
I just want to go, before we lose all the time,
that's a good one.
we're getting close to an hour. I just want to know what we'd rate it, how we liked it. Did it hit us? Did we love it? Did we, where
6
does
stars.
it come down for us?
6 stars.
We know
6
Mom's
out of 5,
rating.
Mom says.
I want to know your rating, Dad. I'm curious.
I mean, I truly have to give it a 5 out of 5 because, I mean, the magic of what I just described of using the Victorian frame narrative to the absolute nth degree of not only exploring the physical world and us trying to attempt to change it, but our internal metaphysical spiritual reality, the beautiful prose. Just listening to Sir Kenneth Branagh say these words, it was like Shakespeare. It harkens back to language that is that beautiful. On pretty much on the compression to achieve this, and that, you think this is wordy? This
Yeah.
is 50. That few words did all of this. I'm sorry. This is a master of his craft at work. I can't believe this was one of his third or fourth or whatever language that he tackled.
And this is an early work of his too. This is
some people are
some
just
at the beginning of his
struck
career.
by lightning.
Yeah.
This is one of those things that is just struck by lightning, and I think it operates outside of space and time as true art does, because anyone at any time at any place can come to this and see themselves in it. I saw my own family beating their head against the wall in Texas to try and create an empire. Anyone that comes to this can see something
Mom's
about
got a quote.
themselves and learn something about themselves and the world they exist in at the same time and how they interact with it. So this is absolutely a 5 out of 5 stars. Like there's no flies on this. You can't jink it. You can't give
There
it
are
any
flies
chink.
in this.
I completely agree. It has to be a 5. Anything that
Yeah.
I feel like you can talk, anything that is this short and contains so many messages
Talking point.
and the ability
Yeah.
to hold a mirror up to humanity and be able to talk about it for this long and still feel like, I mean, if we
I
sat
didn't get
here
to the bottom of that. Yeah.
if we sat here
Yeah.
for another hour, I bet we could still find, more things to talk about with this book.
Yeah.
That's a massive achievement. And on top of that, like you said with the prose,
Yeah.
it really feels
Oh,
the only reason that Kenneth Branagh was able to turn in such a great performance is because of what he was reading. It feels
it always starts
Shakespearean in
with
the way
text.
that this is a text that suits itself well to performance because it is so finely crafted in the way that a human can tell it.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, this is a
It's
first-person
dude
narrative.
telling a story. Yeah.
And one nested inside another. And I will say at first that I did read this with like a really pretentious air. It was like, the Nelly, a cruising yawl, swung to her anchor without a flutter in the sails. And it was just like, oh, this is so much. This is so much. But Sir Kenny gives us such an airy, breezy way of talking about this. Like it's just, it's just nothing. I'm just
in a weird way. It doesn't feel dense when he
shooting
reads
the crap
it.
with my boys. It's just like I'm shooting the crap with my boys.
Yeah.
That's all he's doing, and it feels amazing when it's performed like that.
Oh, completely agree.
Like you don't hear the pretension in it. Instead, you hear the anguish of just like my soul is in so much anguish and I'm so conflicted that these are the words that come out. And it's I can't say enough about how much I love that performance and why I really prefer that way of interacting with this text.
Yeah, I agree. He knocks it out of the park.
Yeah.
Were you going to say something, but I think we.
No, it was pretty much what Mom just said. Yeah.
So I'll end with this quote.
Okay.
If such is the form of ultimate wisdom, then life is a greater riddle than some of us think it to be. I was within a hair's breadth of that last opportunity for pronouncement, and I found with humiliation that I probably would have nothing to say. This is the reason why I affirm that Kurtz was a great man. He had something to say.
Something to say. I mean, yeah. Yeah. Isn't that gorgeous? That's gorgeous.
I'm going to eat my cough drop
put
now.
Pop your lozenge back in.
Okay. Well, I got your desk all sticky.
Oh, I know. I'm going to have to clean now.
Oh, stop it. There you go. I got it.
Well, everyone.
Squeaky clean now.
Yeah, there, it's gorgeous with your spit. Everyone, thanks for joining us all month long for our March into Darkness on Discord.
Yeah. That was really fun. Everybody who joined us on that, I really enjoyed your points of
Absolutely.
view.
So
I enjoyed the additional text that we read. We read Tiger Force.
Oh, there's a lot.
I can't even remember the two authors' names, but that was a really deep dive on. It was a nonfiction dive on the a very, very bad section of the Army in Vietnam, which I come to find out was like the basis of like Platoon and that movie and some of the other just like really wild.
Tiger Force is by Michael D. Sala and Mitch Weiss.
Thank you, Jacob. So that we did a deep dive on Dante's Inferno.
Yeah.
We did a deep dive on Heart of Darkness, of course, and everybody had a different point of view, and I loved it. Loved
the
it.
beauty of
The mark of
Yeah.
a great work.
Right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think you have a very important announcement.
Do I?
For Book Club with the Misses going forward.
Yes, I'm going to take a little time off. I'm going to take a little time off to write book 2.
Yeah.
So I will be back when I've got something that I just can't stand to keep to
not
myself.
talk about.
Yeah.
But
But until
creative
then,
stuff
I
is-
have got to get back to work. I have been sitting in this chair for too long.
Yeah.
I've been talking about Discovery for too long.
Well, it was perfect because
Absolutely perfect.
We had, we got it wasn't creative work. We were getting all the moving pieces ready to go to print. But now
We've been doing
that's
that for
kinda
about
set
2
up
months,
so
and now
creative
that's
work
over.
is coming back,
Creative work is coming back. It's time
and
to do
that's where I think
That's where my focus is going to be for a bit.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I will be back when I've got something important to say.
In 2 months.
Love to be
Okay.
next month. I love being with here. Love being with the BookTube community. Always a pleasure.
You can still join and find us. You will be on Discord. I bet
will
you'll
be.
be checking in Discord.
Yeah,
no matter
yeah.
what. So there's not just Book Club with the Misses. There's so many read-alongs going on Discord. People, not just us, people just starting read-alongs. Hop on there. Find a group you like. There's so many amazing people to hang out and talk books with and do read-alongs
Not
with.
just
It's amazing.
classical books, although that
there's-
channel is humming lately.
Yeah, all kinds of
but we've
things,
got like fantasy, sci-fi, horror.
Yeah. whatever your jam is.
Whatever your jam is, we're
You can
covering
find
it.
the people to hang.
We got a food channel.
Food channel.
We got a poo channel.
We got a channel just for poo. Although it's
Yeah.
not just for poo anymore. Everyone's sharing pictures of their dogs.
Oh, it's
and cats.
everyone's
Yeah.
pets gets
It's
to
great.
hang out. Yeah, it's a really cool place.
I love that.
Thanks everyone. Hit us up in comments if you read Heart of Darkness, and if you weren't, if you haven't read Heart of Darkness, I don't think you're still here. so hit us up. Whatever you think, we'll love comments. We'll get back with everybody, and we're gonna see you soon next time on Talking Story.
Bye.